A SpaceX rocket just crashed into the moon. An actual piece of Falcon 9 slammed into the lunar surface, and we now have images of the damage. And somehow, that wasn't the strangest thing that happened in space last week. NASA may have just seen evidence that empty space itself can behave like matter, and from the surface of Mars, Perseverance watched Earth completely disappear. So yeah, last week in space was eventful. Let's start with the main story. On Wednesday morning, something built by SpaceX hit the moon traveling at around 8,700 kilometers per hour. And unlike most things SpaceX sends towards the moon, this one definitely wasn't supposed to go there. What hit the surface was the upper stage of a Falcon 9 rocket, the part of the rocket that continues flying after the main booster has already done its job. It had been floating around in space since January 2025. That launch actually carried two lunar missions: Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost and iSpace's Resilience Lander. Both separated from the rocket and went on their way, but the Falcon 9 stage was left behind. And this is where the things get interesting, because it didn't just sit there in some nice predictable orbit forever. Over the next year and a half, gravity from the Earth, the moon, and even pressure from sunlight slowly changed its path. Eventually, astronomers realized where that path was going to end. Right here, near the Einstein crater on the far side of the moon. And by that point, there wasn't really anything anyone could do about it. The rocket stage had no fuel, no control system capable of saving it, and nobody was flying up there to grab it. So scientists did the next best thing. They watched. They knew roughly when and where the impact would happen, which made this a pretty rare opportunity. Normally when something hits the moon, we find the crater first and then try to work backwards. This time we knew the object, we knew roughly how massive it was, we knew its speed, and we knew when it was going to arrive. At around 6:35 AM UTC on August 5th, the Falcon 9 stage finally reached the moon. At which point, it stopped being a Falcon 9 stage and it became a projectile. The impact blasted material away from the surface and left behind a completely new crater. Scientists had estimated beforehand that the crater could be somewhere around 40 meters across. Unfortunately, despite quite a few telescopes watching, nobody appears to have captured a clear video of the actual moment of impact, which is mildly disappointing. We knew exactly when a rocket was going to smash into the moon, and somehow nobody thought to press record. But we didn't have to wait very long to see the aftermath of the impact. South Korea's Danuri spacecraft was already orbiting the moon, and shortly after the impact it flew over the area. And this is what it saw. On the left you are looking at the area before the crash, and on the right you are looking at it afterwards. You can see a new dark patch where the rocket hit, with material scattered across the surrounding surface. And this is humanity's newest mark on the moon. Interestingly, there is another SpaceX connection here too. Danuri itself was launched into space by Falcon 9 back in 2022. So a SpaceX rocket helped to put the spacecraft around the moon, which then photographed the hole left by another SpaceX rocket crashing into it. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter is also expected to pass over the area and take a much closer look at the new crater. And scientifically speaking, this is very useful. Researchers know quite a lot about the thing that made this crater. That gives them a controlled example of what happens when an object of this size and this speed hits the lunar surface. This will help improve our models of natural impacts as well. But there is also a bigger issue hiding behind this story. We are sending more stuff towards the moon than we have ever before. Government missions, private landers, relay satellites, rocket stages, and eventually, if current plans actually happen, permanent infrastructure and people. Right now, one abandoned rocket hitting an empty patch of the moon isn't exactly a disaster. The moon has survived slightly worse over the last 4 billion years. But we can't assume every future impact will conveniently hit nothing. Tracking objects moving between Earth and the moon is going to become much more important as the region gets busier. This Falcon 9 wasn't really a problem, it was more like a preview of things to come in my opinion. And while SpaceX was accidentally changing the surface of the moon, NASA may have been watching something much stranger happen to space itself. And this one gets weird very quickly, so stay with me. Scientists using a NASA telescope may have just seen evidence for something physicists have been trying to detect directly for about 90 years. And it suggests that under the right conditions, empty space doesn't behave like empty space. Oh boy. The story starts with this. And if you've never seen this one before, think of a neutron star turned up to an almost ridiculous level. A neutron star is what's left behind when a massive star dies. You take more mass than our sun, crush it down into something roughly the size of a city, and you end up with one of the densest objects in the universe. Some neutron stars also have incredibly powerful magnetic field. We call them magnetars, and the one we are looking at here is called 1E 1547.0-5408. Not exactly a name you would give your firstborn child unless you Elon Musk, but despite the name, it's an extraordinary object. Its magnetic field is vastly stronger than anything we can create on Earth, and that makes the space around it a natural laboratory for physics we simply can't test properly ourselves. NASA's IXPE telescope spent more than 140 hours studying this magnetar. This telescope doesn't just look at X-rays, it can also measure something called polarization. It tells scientists about the way those waves of light are lined up as they travel towards us. And what IXPE saw around this magnetar was strange. The X-rays were far more strongly lined up than normal models predicted. In some parts of the signal, the polarization reached around 80%. Scientists tried to explain that using the magnetar itself, its surface, its magnetic field, the places where the X-rays are being produced. But the numbers still didn't add up. There seemed to be something else affecting the light on its journey away from the star. And that brings us to an idea first predicted in 1936. Vacuum birefringence. The name sounds terrifying, but the idea is actually much simpler. Normally, we imagine a vacuum as nothing. No air, no matter, just space. But quantum physics says that space isn't really completely empty. And if you put that space inside a strong magnetic field, something very strange may happen. The vacuum itself can start affecting light passing through it. You can almost think of it like putting a piece of glass in the light's path. The light travels differently depending on how it's lined up. That's why NASA says this could be the first direct observation of vacuum birefringence. And I want to emphasize the word could. It's not a fact yet. Scientists aren't closing the book and declaring a 90-year-old theory officially solved forever. They want more observations of this magnetar and others like it. But right now, this is probably the strongest evidence we ever had that this effect really happens. And from one of the strangest objects in the universe, we move to something much more familiar. Because this week, NASA also released a picture taken from another planet. And the tiny dot in it is us. Take a look at this image. It probably doesn't look like much at first. You've got the Martian horizon, the evening sky, and somewhere in there, Earth. That tiny bright dot is our entire planet. Perseverance photographed it from the surface of Mars. And at the time this was taken, Earth was around 314 million kilometers away. Which is why every ocean, every continent, and pretty much every person who has ever annoyed you fits comfortably inside that one pixel. But NASA wasn't actually taking these pictures just to remind us how small we are. They were waiting for something very specific to happen. Because moving across the same Martian sky was Phobos. Phobos is the larger of Mars's two moons, although large is being generous. It's only around 27 kilometers across at its widest point, and it looks more like a badly shaped potato than a normal moon. It also orbits extremely close to Mars, so from Perseverance's position inside Jezero crater, Phobos moves across the sky quickly, and on July 2nd, everything lined up almost perfectly. Earth moved one way, Phobos moved the other, and for a few moments, Earth disappeared. And then it came back. What you're watching here is called an occultation. One object passes directly in front of another from your point of view and completely hides it. And while we photographed Earth from Mars before, NASA says this is the first time humanity has ever captured Earth disappearing behind another object from the surface of another planet, which is a strangely specific first. But also a pretty cool one. The full sequence was captured by Perseverance's Mastcam Z camera at around 7 in the evening local Mars time. And when NASA combined the individual frames, you get this. Earth moving from the upper left, Phobos coming the other way, and right in the middle, our planet simply switches off. And there is something unique about seeing our planet from this perspective. And that was last week in space. Not bad for 7 days. Thank you for watching, keep looking up.